Good afternoon. I am Colonel Scott Roweeder, the Chief of the Joint Staff of the Minnesota National Guard. I'm accompanied by the Installation Chaplain, Major Stephanie Christoffels, and the Director of Personnel and Community Activities, Captain Takesha Hunt. It is my honor and sincere pleasure to welcome you to the 2023-2024 Court of Honor Induction Ceremony. At this time, please rise as you are able and remain standing for the entrance of the official party, followed by the playing of the national anthem and the invocation by Chaplain Christoffels. As this is an indoor ceremony during the national anthem, please remove any hats and refrain from saluting. Color Guard, post the colors.
Let us pray. Lord God, we give you thanks for this day and all those who are honored. We thank you for the time they gave to serve this nation, the sacrifices they and their families made for the mission you called them to, and the leadership and mentorship they provided and continue to provide to so many. May today be a day of joy and a day of blessing as we recognize their accomplishments. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Please take your seats. Again, welcome everyone. The Minnesota National Guard has been memorializing individuals since 1933. As stated in General Order Number 5, as a perpetual monument in memory of grateful state and nation, train features on Camp Ripley Military Reservation, Little Falls, Minnesota, are hereby named in honor of Minnesota citizens, now deceased, who served honorably in our armed forces during a time of war. At that time, 159 individuals were honored. Throughout the years, over several decades leading up to the early 1980s, the program was intermittent and only 8 individuals, all deceased, were inducted. In 1988, we formalized the program and began hosting induction ceremonies biannually during the even-numbered years. In 2009, the board members amended the program to host annual induction ceremonies. To date, 532 individuals have been honored with their names etched in the granite walls that line the Court of Honor at Minnesota's Military Museum on Camp Ripley. There are several distinguished individuals here today, and I'd be remiss if we didn't take a moment to recognize them. As I introduce the official party and board members present, please stand. The Adjutant General of the State of Minnesota, Major General Sean Mankey. The co-chairman of the Memorialization Board, Brigadier General Eric Kurska. The Senior Enlisted Advisor, Army Command Sergeant Major Jason Rost. In addition to the official party, we are joined here today by several Memorialization Board members. I will name them off now. Major General Neil Lloydalt, Brigadier General Eric Kurska, Brigadier General Stephanie Horvath, Colonel Troy Fink, Colonel Scott Roweeder, Chief Warrant Officer 5 Eric Homme, Chief Warrant Officer 4 Tori Clunas, Command Sergeant Major Matthew Erickson, Command Sergeant Major Juan Esquivel, Command Sergeant Major Ryan Hofstede, Command Sergeant Major Cynthia Kahlberg, Command Sergeant Major Jason Rost, and Civilian Kathy Raji. I'm also joined by several other distinguished visitors here today, and as I read your name off, please feel free to stand. General Joseph Votel, Lieutenant General John Jensen, Lieutenant General Larry Shellito, Major General Gerald Lang, Major General John Trost, Major General Harry Sieben, Major General David Elisario, Major General Gene Andriotti, Major General Jill Ferris, Brigadier General Timothy Kennedy, Brigadier General Simon Schaefer, Brigadier General Don Kerr, Brigadier General Tim Kennedy, Brigadier General Lowell Cruz, Chief Warrant Officer 5 Eric Homme, Chief Warrant Officer 5 Thomas Maxwell, Chief Warrant Officer 5 Larry Sharon, Chief Warrant Officer 5 Marvin Garby, Chief Warrant Officer 5 Peter Panos, Command Chief Master Sergeant Lisa Erickson, Command Sergeant Major Douglas Wortham, Command Sergeant Major Juan Esquivel, Command Sergeant Major Cynthia Kahlberg, Command Sergeant Major Jason Rost, Command Sergeant Major Robert Boone, Command Sergeant Major Clarence Gardner, Command Sergeant Major Paul Herr, Command Sergeant Major Scott Mills, Command Sergeant Major Jim Campson, and Command Sergeant Major Douglas Julien. The Minnesota National Guard Command Chief Warrant Officer, wrong page. We move on. Thank you, and please know that we appreciate all of the time and work and dedication you have all done ensuring this important tradition of the Court of Honor continues. Lastly, can we please take a moment to recognize any past Court of Honor inductees in the audience today? If you're here, would you please stand? Thank you for your dedicated service. The Court of Honor, located at the Military Museum on Camp Ripley, provides a prestigious and visible area for the purpose of recognizing and remembering those individuals who have, through dedicated service to our state and nation, attained uncommon prestige or have performed highly distinguished service over an extended period of years. This year, we recognize the following individuals whose names are now engraved in the Court of Honor: Brigadier General Ross Forchey, Brigadier General Kevin S. Gertis, Colonel Larry J. Herkey, Colonel William A. Hose, Colonel Chad M. Sackett, Colonel Mark G. Veens, Chief Warrant Officer 5 Stephen J. Getz, Command Sergeant Major Eric R. Arney, Command Sergeant Major Robert L. Klinkner, Command Sergeant Major John M. Lapowski, Command Sergeant Major Michael P. Warden, First Sergeant Virgil D. Cochran, and Civilian Mary E. Erickson. Please join the members of the Memorialization Board in honoring these select and distinguished soldiers and their families.
Our first honoree today is Brigadier General Ross Forchey. General Forchey began his military career with the commission as an infantry officer December 1960, following his initial period of active duty for training. He joined the Minnesota Army National Guard December 1961 when he was assigned as a platoon leader in Headquarters Company, 2nd Battle Group, 136th Infantry. Over the next 36 years, General Forchey served in leadership and staff positions, predominantly in the 136th Infantry, the Bearcats. He participated in several short overseas exercises as a part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, Autumn Forge. His culminating assignment was to serve as the commander of the 2nd Battalion Mechanized 136th Infantry during a 3-week rotation to the National Training Center at Fort Irwin, California in 1984. Following his successful battalion command, General Forchey was assigned as the executive officer of Minnesota Troop Command and later selected for service as Commandant of the Minnesota Academy. He was promoted and served a subsequent assignment in command of the Minnesota Troop Command, remaining as an infantry officer throughout his career. He was promoted to Brigadier General and served successfully as the Assistant Adjutant General for Plans and Operations. He served as the senior U.S. officer leading the Minnesota contingent on the annual Norwegian Troop Exchange in 1994 and remained the Assistant Adjutant General for Plans and Operations until he retired in August of 1995, with superlative efficiency reports in every position he held. General Forchey's military education includes the United States Army Command and Staff, General Staff, and the United States Army War College. Simultaneously, his civilian career demonstrated similar commitment to performance excellence. A 4-star letter athlete in high school and in college, lettering in baseball, basketball, football, and tennis. He received his bachelor's degree from North Dakota State University in 1960, his master's degree from Morehead State University in 1965, and his doctorate of education from the University of North Dakota in 1987. After completing his student teaching in 1960, he was hired in a temporary role as the assistant football coach, assistant basketball coach, head baseball coach, head football coach at North Dakota State University from 1962 to 1967. Additionally, as the head coach at MSU from 1970 to 1992. Over 20 years, General Forchey was the associate professor for physical education, as well as the men's athletic director at Morehead State University. He stepped down as athletic director in 1992 when he was offered a promotion to Brigadier General in the Minnesota National Guard. He also served as a member of the Military Affairs Committee of the Fargo, North Dakota Chamber of Commerce. Prior to his nomination to the Minnesota National Guard Court of Honor, General Forchey has been inducted into 7 Hall of Fames: the North Dakota State University Athletic Hall of Fame, the Minnesota State University Morehead Athletic Hall of Fame, the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletes Coach Hall of Fame, the Minnesota High School Coaches Hall of Fame, the City of Bemidji Hall of Fame, and the Hall of Fame of Bemidji High School. General Forchey was also recognized by the Minnesota Athletic Directors Association with an Outstanding Alumni Award in 2004 and received the John Gallardy Legacy Award by the Minnesota chapter of National Football Foundation in 2001. General Forchey was nominated by Brigadier General Don Kerr.
General officers, audience, greetings to you all. They tell me I only have 2 minutes, so I cannot introduce all the people I would like to. I also read some of my remarks to follow the guidelines and not get carried away. First, I want to thank the selection committee for selecting me for the Court of Honor. It is appreciated very much. Also want to thank Brigadier General Don Kerr for recommending me for this award. His recommendation took a lot of research and many rewrites. I want to congratulate the others selected for this award. It is truly an honor to be on this Court of Honor of Recipients that started in 1933. I'm grateful for the guidance, help, and cooperation I've received from the guardsmen and women in the various commands. There are many soldiers that have contributed to my being here today, and I feel they are part of this award. I know the work of the Minnesota National Guard is of great importance to the state and the nation. Our communities showed support of the National Guard units when they were deployed and they returned. We continue this in the future, I hope. There were many intermediate family members that allowed me to pursue my vocations. There are 2 here today, my wife Ann and my daughter of 3, the youngest of 3, Shay. Please stand, Shay, for a second. I spent a lot of time away from home, coaching, recruiting, educational schools, military drills and training. I thank them for their support. I have deep roots in Little Falls. I was born in Little Falls, and my parents moved to Bemidji when I was 4 years old. My 2 great-grandfathers were important to the development of Little Falls. One mustered out at Camp Ripley, it was Fort Ripley at the time, after the Civil War. His name was Louis Vassley. He was later hired to work at Camp Ripley and resided in this area. The other great-grandfather was a medical doctor that arrived in 1881 from Montreal. He married and had children. His name was G.M.A. Forchi. His children and grandchildren also became medical doctors in Little Falls. One of his sons, my grandfather, was a dentist in Little Falls. Maybe some of you have been dentists or have been patients of them. So it's special for me to receive this award in the city that I was born in. Thanks again to the committee and Don Kerr for this opportunity.
Our next honoree is Brigadier General Kevin S. Gertis. Brigadier General Gertis enlisted into the Minnesota Army National Guard in 1979 as a fire direction computer operator in the 1st Battalion, 175th Field Artillery. He attended St. John University and received his commission through ROTC as a second lieutenant in May 1982. General Gertis served 33 years with the Minnesota Army National Guard in various positions. General Gertis served full-time in the Minnesota National Guard as a dual-status military technician and active duty Guard Reserve program from 1983 to 2010. He served in many full-time positions to include Civil Military Operations Officer, where he coordinated the Minnesota National Guard's emergency response with the governor's office. He also served as a training officer and administrative officer with the 1st Battalion, 175th Field Artillery, and training officer and officer in charge of the 34th Division Artillery. From 1999 to 2003, General Gertis served as executive officer and commander in the Recruiting and Retention Battalion, establishing new levels of readiness for the Minnesota Army National Guard. He was inducted into the Recruiting and Retention Hall of Fame. General Gertis took command of the 1st Battalion, 151st Field Artillery in 2003, the same unit he had enlisted in 24 years earlier. As commander in 2004, the battalion was deployed in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, where General Gertis served as garrison commander for Camp Taji, Iraq. Following the 14-month assignment, his unit was recognized with the Presidential Unit Citation. In January of 2006, he was reassigned to the J1 Director of Manpower and Personnel, where he championed the establishment of new full-time staff support personnel management processes, creating a deployment cycle support section and deployment cycle support section to plan and execute family reintegration academies, a first in state history. General Gertis helped establish Minnesota Beyond the Yellow Ribbon, which served as a model for all reserve components and approved by the National Defense Authorization Act in 2008. The Yellow Ribbon Community and Corporations program was launched in communities across Minnesota. General Gertis was reassigned to the Adjutant General's Chief of Staff on July 1st, 2010, where he was in charge of reconstructing Army and Air National Guard staff into joint headquarters. On 1 July 2011, he was reassigned to the Assistant Division Commander, Support 34th Infantry Division, and retired a year later in 2012. General Gertis earned his bachelor's degree in management from Upper Iowa University and master's degree in strategic studies in 2006 from the U.S. Army War College in Pennsylvania. Upon his retirement from the Minnesota National Guard, General Gertis completed his doctoral studies and was awarded a Doctor's of Educational Leadership in 2014 from the University of St. Thomas. He taught leadership-related courses at the University of Minnesota while serving as the director of the Masters of Public Affairs program. General Gertis served his community in many different capacities. He has led strategic planning efforts at St. Andrew's Lutheran Church in Matamidi. He frequently serves as speakers for Memorial Day and Veterans Day programs across Minnesota. General Gertis serves on the board of directors for the Minnesota Military Family Foundation from 2014 to 2017 and is currently serving as the board member of the American Heroes Outdoor. He is a life member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars and a member of the American Legion. In his spare time, he enjoys playing the guitar and singing. He and his wife, Mickey, currently reside in Matamidi, Minnesota. They have two married sons, Tyson and their wife, Lauren, at Fort Lewis, Washington, and Patrick and wife, Marty, in Hudson, Wisconsin. They also have two grandchildren. General Gertis was nominated by Brigadier General Lowell Cruz, Colonel Scott St. Sauver, and CSM Eric Arney. General Gertis did want me to share a few words on his behalf today as he could not be here. This is truly an honor to be inducted into the Minnesota National Guard Court of Honor. and I thank those who took the time to submit my nomination packet. Unfortunately, other commitments have kept me from attending today's ceremony. As you've listened to the contributions of these year's inductees, you've likely come to the realization that this Court of Honor recognizes not only military service accomplishments, but post-military service in the community. Military service has a way of instilling this uncanny desire to continue serving. And when you hang up your uniform, we're left trying to figure out what's next. What's our next mission? Service, whether it's in uniform or not, involves sacrifice at some level. I am reminded of this every year on February 21st, when we remember the ultimate sacrifice made by Jesse Latka, Jason Timmerman, and David Day, who were killed by a roadside bomb in Baghdad. These soldiers were in my battalion. Their deaths and their sacrifices consistently challenged me with the nagging question, how can I live my life to best honor their deaths? It's a question that many of us have attempted to answer. How can we continue to serve our families, our communities, in a way that honors the sacrifice of the fallen comrades? Our response can be seen in both our military and community services. My military service began as a family tradition and continued to be my family's affairs. My grandpa John served in World War I. His two sons served in World War II, including my Uncle Louis at Iwo Jima. My son and daughter-in-law each did a combat tour in Afghanistan. My dad and brother served, 6 uncles and 12 of my cousins served, either in the National Guard or active duty. My guard drill weekends in Montevideo were more like a family reunion after 33 years. A few of my closest battle buddies became lifelong brothers, but one person has served and sacrificed with me from before I even took my oath of office in 1979. She was my high school sweetheart who wrote me letters every day of my 3 months in basic training. She's been there through a deployment to Iraq, and she has stood with me as my wife for 42 years, attending many family and holiday gatherings without me. Mickey not only supported me in my career, but made her own sacrifices to put our 2 boys and me as her priority in life. What I've come to realize after these many years together is that she has modeled for me how to be a true friend and how to serve. She's been my inspiration. At times when I don't think I have to step up for someone else, Mickey leads the way and makes it happen. She is the model of selflessness or selfless service, and I am indebted to her for all she has done for us, our friends, our community. My life would not be as rich without her, and I love her for that. She's the one who should be honored today. The Court of Honor is not only a recognition of achievements, but a challenge to focus beyond ourselves to others. I'm humbled to join this prestigious court, and today is a good time for all of us to reflect on how we are living, loving, and serving. Let us commit ourselves to continued service and to inspire others. The need is great. Thank you. Our next honoree is Colonel Larry J. Herkey. Colonel Herkey's military career began in the Army in 1985 and culminated 30 years later in the Minnesota Army National Guard. He left a legacy of commitment to preparing soldiers and leaders. Colonel Herkey was exceptionally gifted in both logistics and staff processes. Colonel Herkey graduated from Minnesota State University at Mankato, commissioning as an air-based defense officer through ROTC. After completing 4 years of active duty in West Germany, he joined the Minnesota Army National Guard's 1st Quadrant, 194th Cavalry in Brainerd, Minnesota. Over the next 26 years, Colonel Herkey served in positions of increased responsibility at all echelons, and completing his service assigned to the state headquarters State Mobilization Officer and State Construction and Facilities Management Officer. In 2005, Colonel Herkey was mobilized and served for 22 months as the 1st Brigade, 34th Infantry Division Executive Officer during their historic 16-month combat deployment. Following his return from Iraq, Colonel Herkey assumed duties as the State Mobilization and Readiness Officer, responsible for establishing and redefining existing processes mobilizing Minnesota Army National Guard personnel. His final military assignment as the Construction and Facility Management Officer, Colonel Herkey was personally responsible for introducing many initiatives that impact the stability of the Minnesota National Guard. He spearheaded the efforts to work with Minnesota Power to build the 10-megawatt solar field at Camp Ripley, at the time, the largest solar generation facility in the Department of Defense. Colonel Herkey was also responsible for the completion of the first Comprehensive Readiness Center Transformation Master Plan completed in 2014 that had been the blueprint for focusing our facility investments since its publication. Following his retirement from the National Guard in 2016, Colonel Herkey continued his service employed by the state of Minnesota. He was selected as the first director of the Office of Enterprise Stability in the Department of Administration. His initiative set the groundwork for programs that resulted in millions of dollars in energy saving and postured the state government for a more stable future. In 2019, Governor Wall selected Colonel Herkey to serve in his administration as the Commissioner of the Department of Veteran Affairs. During his 4-year period of service to the Minnesota Veteran Affairs as Commissioner, Colonel Herkey again applied his extensive knowledge of facilities and stability to provide much-needed attention to critical physical plant needs of the Department of Veteran Affairs, which included 5 veteran homes across the state of Minnesota. He also drove numerous legislative proposals to improve veteran benefits in Minnesota. These included a significant appropriation for the post-9/11 veteran bonus, supporting more than 20,000 Minnesota veterans, and successful major initiatives to increase the footprint of support by securing state and federal funding. This funding helped to construct 4 additional veteran homes in geographical locations dispersed throughout Minnesota to better serve aging Minnesota veterans. Colonel Herkey's family was not able to make it today. However, Colonel Herkey was nominated by Brigadier General Kurska and Brigadier General Don Kerr. Our next honoree is Colonel William A. Host. In 1989, Colonel Host started as a state communication officer, where he received 2 letters from Governor Rudy Perpich thanking him for assistance in the statewide communication access and routing systems, stars, and conversion to 5.3 digital switches in St. Paul. The actual quote read, "To make a project of this magnitude a success takes more than good planning and technical expertise. It requires a spirit of cooperation, dedication, of energies, and commitment to quality." Signed, Rudy Perpich, Governor. He also installed a new private branch exchange at Camp Ripley to dramatically increase phone communication capabilities for hundreds of Minnesota personnel. In 1990, Colonel Host was selected to be the Director of Information Management, an 06 level position. In 1992, just 2 years into the job, Colonel Host received a letter from the Director of Army National Guard, Major General Ronald Reese, thanking him for his exceptional service as an equipment and computer support officer during the Army National Guard Resource Management Conference for the 4th and 5th Army areas. Colonel Host also received a letter by Tony McGill and Richard Yin from Simtech Corporations and Norton Utilities stated, "Thank you for the outstanding work you did during the external testing of Norton Utilities Administrator. Through your contributions, Simtech and Peter Norton Group can maintain its track record of providing the highest quality software products available. Semtech Corporation was a multinational and, at the time, the largest maker of security software for computers, best known as for its Norton brand. Semtech and Norton were not the only tech companies Colonel Host collaborated with. In an exceptionally forward-thinking white paper, Colonel Host elaborated on specifications and considerations for voice-over frame relay. Colonel Host authored the white paper for a company that became the world's leader in networking about a premier technology enabling voice communication over a data network. In 1995, Colonel Host was selected for a national-level reserve component automation system working group called the Validation Assessment Team to validate RCAS program change, recommendation, and developed a program-wide plan for implementation. In 1999, Colonel Host received a Medal for Merit from Major General Gene Andreotti. His citation stated that under his direction, the Minnesota Army National Guard Network has recorded a number of firsts in its design and operation when compared to other systems throughout the National Guard Bureau. In 2000, Colonel Host was selected as the Federal Civil Servant of the Year for the Minnesota Army National Guard. In 2005, Colonel Host was asked to return as the NGB Information Council chairman from 2003 to 2006. Colonel Host's exceptional technical acumen led to advanced technological achievements widely recognized by National Guard and government leaders, as well as industry-shaping technology companies. Through leadership and exceptional organizational talent, every administrative task tied to readiness, recorded entry for training and logistics, operational deployments, or exercise traveled over the network and server stacks throughout 87 National Guard sites that Colonel Host built. Colonel Host could not be here today, but Colonel Host was nominated by Brigadier General Stephanie Horvath.
I didn't write anything because I didn't know I was supposed to say anything, but a lot of people in this audience meant a lot to my father, and I know he meant a lot to you guys. So it means a lot to me to be here today to accept this, and I guess I get a little something out of it too, to the last man.
Our next honoree is Colonel Chad M. Sackett. Colonel Sackett began his military career when he enlisted in the Minnesota National Guard November 26, 1985, as a 95 Bravo military police. Colonel Sackett received his commission as a distinguished military graduate of Bemidji State University, ROTC, in 1989. He commissioned as a military police officer and later branch transferred to the infantry for the remainder of his career. Over his 34-year career, Colonel Sackett distinguished himself both M-Day and active guard and reserve in service to the Minnesota Army National Guard. Colonel Sackett culminated his career as the J3 Minnesota National Guard Joint Force Headquarters St. Paul, Minnesota. Following the attacks of 9/11, Colonel Sackett was mobilized as the OIC of Operation Ice Eagle, the No Notice Airport Security Mission, as a part of Operation Noble Eagle. Colonel Sackett led the Minnesota National Guard Counter-Drug Task Force as the full-time staff counter-drug coordinator, providing military support to law enforcement agencies, community-based organizations, and schools. While serving in domestic operation roles, Colonel Sackett was certified as the emergency manager and leveraged his experience and relationship across numerous emergency response plans, exercises, and events to include the 1997 flood as a commander, in 2001, the Red River flood as the task force commander, and in standing up the JOC. He was the representative to the State Response Operations Center during Hurricane Katrina and led the Minnesota National Guard response as OIC for the 2007 Southeast floods. Colonel Sackett deployed as the Chief of Operations for the 34th Infantry Division in Multinational Division South during Operation Iraqi Freedom from 2009 to 2010. Colonel Sackett's leadership and experience as a Division Deputy G3 was decisive to the success of the 34th ID in Austere Challenge 2011. Colonel Sackett served as the primary planner during Crisis Action Plan in Germany, building consensus with the 5 coalition partners, coordinating through an exercise in Germany using lessons learned while in Iraq. While commanding the 2nd Combined Arms Battalion, 34th 136th Infantry, he guided the transition of the unit mission from counterinsurgency to decisive action operations, laying the foundation for the battalion to lead the 1st ABCT through XCTC and NTC rotations in the following years. Colonel Sackett influenced the operations and development of Camp Ripley through his leadership, experience, and ability to build consensus while serving as a deputy commander, synchronizing the planning and execution of the Norwegian Exchange, biennial open house, memorialization, and assisting with Croatian partners in base development. Colonel Sackett lives with his wife, Jackie, in Little Falls, Minnesota. They have a daughter who is a senior at Bemidji State University, a son who recently enlisted in the U.S. Army, and a daughter who is a high school sophomore. He spends much of his time volunteering to include ESGR, where he was appointed by the DoD as the state chair for a 3-year term from October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2016. The 34th Infantry Division Association Commander's Own Chapter as the chapter president, in numerous positions with the Boy Scouts of America, currently as the Council Commissioner of Central Minnesota Council and Assistant Scoutmaster of Troop 51 Little Falls. Recognized with the 2022 District Scouter of the Year and 2024 Silver Beaver Award, and as a longtime Minnesota Dare Board of Directors member. Additionally, he maintains his life membership with the National Guard Association of Minnesota and the United States, 34th ID Association, Veterans of Foreign Wars, American Legion, Disabled American Veterans, and the National Infantry Association. Colonel Sackett was nominated by Major General Charles Kemper.
For those of you who know me, I prefer a 3x5 card. However, I only get 2 minutes, kind of like General Forgy said. So I'll read it and keep it shorter. To my family, friends, all I have served with in the military, and those I have volunteered with through military and youth-related causes. I am being inducted into the Corner Otter because of your support, and I want to recognize you for all you have done to make this happen. I was humbled to be nominated by Major General Kemper, with Colonel Kevin Olson assisting. Thank you for making this happen. I appreciate it. Thank you to the selection board for selecting me. As those who serve know, you don't achieve your rank and position through your own efforts. The Army is a team of teams, and I've been honored to have been on some awesome teams with high-performing individuals and groups. I have worked with and for some of the finest leaders, both officer and NCO, that have guided me, mentored me, supported me, and stood up for me in rooms that I wasn't in. There are too many people throughout my career to mention them all without leaving some out. I tried at my retirement, but it would take more than 2 minutes just for the people in this room if I started reading names of people who have influenced me. But I do want to recognize some key people at key times in my career. My dad, my Uncle Jim, and Ron Sackett, amongst other family members who served. My maternal great-grandfather, Harry Woodward, was mobilized out of the 2nd Military Volunteer Infantry to duty on the Mexican border in 1917, eventually serving with the Rainbow Division in France during World War I. He set the example of what it is to be a Bearcat and a Red Bull. I was torn between college and the military. Jason Lass made the Guard a realistic option for me. Captain Haynes in ROTC helped me understand what matters as an officer, the same for Captain Huey when I was in OBC. Colonel Vern Benson and Lieutenant Colonel Khaled for my transition to 2 of the 136. I once thanked Colonel Benson for that. He paused and said, "I didn't do it for you, I did it for the Army." Brigadier General Kerr for his mentorship as a Bearcat and beyond. It was an amazing becoming his 3 as a battalion commander, the size of the mind on that guy. Lieutenant Colonel Sigfranius, Gary Sigfranius, for hiring me into the full-time force. Sergeant Major Denny Tellock for teaching me what a senior NCO could be. I want to mention Command Sergeant Major Mitch Hellkamp, who's out here too, who has been my battle buddy since 7th grade. Colonel St. Salver and Brigadier General Cruz for my time at Camp Ripley. What a great organization and what a great asset to the Minnesota Guard and in this region. Lieutenant General John Jensen for making me part of your exceptional teams. On the division deployment and after, as Bearcat 6 when you were the 1st Brigade Commander, and as your G3J3 at Joint Force Headquarters. Thank you. Thank you to all my battle buddies and whose friendship and camaraderie made life and service so much better. And I'm not going to name them because, like I said, I would leave someone out and I don't want to do that, but it's just about everybody in here, and many who aren't. There are so many people across all ranks and skill sets throughout my career that have influenced me and made me successful. Know that I thank you for what you have given me along the way. The fact that your name wasn't mentioned doesn't diminish your influence. Today belongs to you also. For those of you who have served with me in the Boy Scouts, Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve, Minnesota DARE, the Commander's Own chapter of the 34th ID Association, and other organizations, thank you for making a difference. As the citizen soldiers, we are part of the community. Thank you for taking me in and making me part of your team. And we have Jerry here, Granum, who is the Executive Director of the Central Minnesota Council. There's a whole group. If anyone has ESGR or employer problems, that whole group back there can help you. And most importantly, I want to thank my family, my friends for their support. My parents and my brother lived in Alaska when I started in the military. My parents were able to make it to my commission. My dad passed away in 2010 while we were in Iraq. And so my mom was able to make it to my promotion to colonel. So Mom, I'm glad you're here. I know it didn't work out for a lot of events, but it's special having you here. I was married later in life, so my family only knew full-time military duty. Thank you to Jackie, Abigail, working on her, like I said, a senior at Bemidji State. Ben, who, if you saw my family kind of walk in late, Ben actually got a chance to call us from Fort Jackson, and a little worried. He's on crutches right now. He has a staph infection on his knee, and he's worried about being recycled, so keep him in your prayers. He's going to school right now. He's going through basic training. Then he wants to be a 91 Fox small arms repairman. And Anna, who's a sophomore at Little Falls. Thank you to my family, extended family, and friends who supported me. But a special thanks to my aunt and uncle Jeff and Julianne, who when I was drilling gave me a base of operations out of the cities. And I want to thank Jackie's family, Lyle and Kathy, and the extended family for supporting Jackie and my family whenever I wasn't around. So thanks to all of you who have made this possible. Know what you mean to me personally and professionally. Thank you.
Our next honoree is Colonel Mike Veems. Colonel Mark Veems graduated from University of Minnesota ROTC program as Distinguished Military Graduate in 1986, earning a Bachelor's of Arts in History. As a cadet, he completed airborne school at Fort Benning, Georgia, and began his military career on active duty in 1987, completing Armor Officer Basic Course and Ranger School. Throughout his 30-year career, Colonel Veems demonstrated exceptional merit in various high-level positions, both in Minnesota Army National Guard and on active duty. In 1997, during the Red River floods, he led a force of over 150 troops as Base Commander North at East Grand Forks. Later in 2001, he served as a planner in the 34th Red Bulls Infantry Division Plan Cell, also as Executive Officer, Task Force Iron in Bosnia, and in 2003 to 2004 during Operation Joint Forge. Colonel Veems was selected for the School for Advanced Military Studies, SAMS, in 2005 and earned a master's degree before returning to the full-time service. As the Chief of Plans for the 34th Infantry Division, he led his team in the key Resolved 08 exercise alongside the 1st Korean Army near Seoul. During the 34th ID deployment to Basra, Iraq, during Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2009 to 2010, he developed CAM Plan Superior. Upon returning from Iraq, Colonel Veems served as the full-time J5 Director of Plans, Policies, and Strategy, Joint Force Headquarters, Minnesota. In this role, he spearheaded the creation of the first Minnesota National Guard CAM Plan, Polaris, and collaborated with state agencies to redesign the All Hazards Operation Plan, Agassiz. In 2010 to 2012, he served as the commander of 2 of the 136 Infantry Combined Arms Battalion, Bearcats, in Moorhead. Colonel Veems was personally selected as the Director of Plans, Engagement, and Communication for Combined Joint Integration Task Force, Afghanistan, in Kabul, Afghanistan, during the support of Operation Enduring Freedom from 2013 to 2014. In this role, he was responsible for strategizing and overseeing operation and engagements at the strategic level, focusing on counter-narcotics, anti- and counter-corruption, prevention of contracting with the enemy, and counter-threat finance activities. After concluding his service in Afghanistan, he was chosen to join the incoming Director of Army National Guard Transition Team in Arlington, Virginia, in 2015. This team, a part of the 3-star organization, played a critical role in developing the Director's initial strategic assessment for presentation to the Secretary of the Army. Subsequently, in 2016, he was appointed as the Army National Guard G5 Director of Strategy, Plans, and Policies. In this capacity, he led the development of the Director's vision, CAM plan, azimuth checks, and Decision Point 58.1, Army National Guard Readiness Initiative Mission Analysis. He also contributed to the design and implementation of the Director Army National Guard's new governance model and initiated the first Army National Guard's SAMS Prep Seminar, aimed at mentoring promising young leaders with the Army National Guard who possess strategic acumen. He retired in 2017 and returned to his home in Minnesota. Colonel Veems was nominated by Colonel Kevin Olson.
Okay, Chad, you set the bar really high. There are 3 Bearcats here today. That's kind of amazing. Maybe it's the trifecta. I'm humbled and honored to be here today and be selected. Thank you for your trust. I had lunch today with General Ferris and the Steve. I got a who out there. Thank you very much. And I had a big debate yesterday, and in discussion they said, maybe you want to cut it down a little bit. So I'm cutting out a lot of stuff, but what I want to do is, there's a couple people here that are very special to me. I want to acknowledge their influence on me, their leadership and their mentorship. First of all, General Votel, thank you for your advice, your leadership for our country, our businesses, our service members, our veterans, and advocacy for our families. It truly has made a difference. Thank you. And I look forward to your presentation at the Veterans Defense Project later this year. Lieutenant Generals Academy, Nash, and Jensen. So one of you is here, so that's great. General Jensen, thanks for coming back for this. Hope to see you in a little bit. But you all gave me the opportunity to command and to be the best planner, strategist that I could ever be, and never halting on the challenges. So thank you very much. Major General Ferris and the Steve, thanks for your mentorship, your collaboration, and your friendship over the many decades, from all the command post exercises to who knows what. Thank you. And all the meals in DC when I was out there as a Geo Bachelor. Major General Lloydel, I appreciate your scintillating guidance for leadership for young staff officers. Gave me a lot to chew on back in the day. I'm going out to TV land. Colonel Johnson, Jeff Johnson, thank you for your comradeship and your support, and for adopting Little Buck. I appreciate that. Thank you. Mr. Kerr and Colonel Athman, it's been a pleasure working and collaborating with you for military affairs, for the state of Minnesota, and for all our military components in the state. You're setting the Minnesota Guard on a trajectory that's stellar. Thank you for your work and collaboration. My legislative assistant, Lieutenant Swanson, JR, right over here, JR, thank you. Thank you for your assistance. So he's my legislative assistant. He just got commissioned, well, last year. And you handle all my bill calendars with alacrity and joy. That's a strange gift that you have. So thank you. Bearcat 7, Command Sergeant Major Erickson. Together we did something amazing with that battalion, that combined arms battalion. And it was your hard work, your vision, your constant peppering me that made me who I am today, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for all that you've done, not just for me, but for all the Bearcats that you led. Thank you. Mr. Anderson's over here, and his wife Connie. Connie, if I'm not loud enough, let me know. So Steve, stand up. Steve and I have worked since I retired. I got involved with the World War II Roundtable. If you're down in the cities, please check it out once a month. Usually it's the second Tuesday of the month. We have people come in that have written new works on World War II that are high quality, Pulitzer Prize winning, and there's a handful of World War II vets that are still around that we bring in to chat with. Steve is, I'm going to call you the acting executive director, and if Don Patton's not watching right now, yeah, who cares? I mean, we can do this here right now. I'm in the legislature. I can do all sorts of stuff. No, but Steve carries on because it's important to remember our history and to honor those that have gone before us that have set the course that we are on. And we can't let that go away, and we can enjoy it. And so thank you, Steve, for your work there in collaboration. I met a guy that I haven't seen for 21 years, and he is he's an inductee here. It's Command Sergeant Major Alan Knutson from Meeker County. Alan was 21 years ago. my father died. He came to the funeral, and he told me a story. He was my dad was a county treasurer in Cottonwood County for 36 years. And they would always get together at conventions. And Command Sergeant Major, thanks for sharing that with me, and I appreciate it. I do miss him. He was World War II vet, 82nd Airborne. Very important. Thank you again, Alan. Senator Howe, I don't know if he made it here today, but Senator Howe, not only a comrade, Red Bull comrade, and we worked. Senator, good to see you. Thank you for coming. I think what's important is for a freshman minority member in our state legislature to be able to deliver a standalone bill in support of veterans that made it through into law on accountability for Veterans Affairs. I couldn't have done it without your help in the Senate. So thank you very much for our veterans. Thanks, Jeff. And then my friend, Colonel Olson, Cowbell, Snow Globe, a friend, comrade, and brother. Thanks for all the chats that we had in Basra during that deployment. It was scintillating again, and thank you for your work that led to today. Missing man, Larry Herkey. Larry and I worked together on a lot of different things in uniform. And over the past 2 years, we got to work on Veterans Affairs, policy, and finance, and did some great things for veterans. And may you rest in peace, brother. And to my love, Tina, thank you for being here and supporting me. I appreciate it. And to all of you, thank you so much for this honor, and attack.
Our next honoree is Chief Warrant Officer 5, Stephen Getz. Chief Warrant Officer 5, Stephen Getz's military career began on February 8, 1983. After basic training, he attended the utility helicopter repair course for 10 weeks in Fort Rucker, Alabama. After completing basic training in AIT, he returned to Echo Company 47th Aviation Battalion in St. Paul, Minnesota. Chief Getz remained a non-commissioned officer until June 19, 1991, achieving the rank of Sergeant E5. Chief Getz served as the Battalion Aviation Maintenance Officer, advising senior officers on aviation mission readiness and capabilities of attack helicopter firepower available that affected outstanding results during division training exercise and active conflicts. In 2008 to 2009, his leadership and technical expertise was tested and contributed to the overall success of the 34th CAB during this deployment in Iraq. On May 16, 2011, Chief Getz transferred from Alpha Company 34th Infantry Division headquarters with a new identifier as a tactical unmanned aircraft system operational officer. Chief Getz left a legacy of being the first Chief Warrant Officer 5 operational officer in the UAS community in the United States. During this assignment, Chief Getz's critical thinking skills, knowledge of UAS systems, and foresight helped the division succeed in several warfighting training exercises. He participated with Miller Army Air Force Airfield at Camp Ripley with the revision of the CRTC 95-1 to include UAS operations. TTPs of the Raven Shadow and the Gray Eagle assets were integrated into the air and ground force plans and are still used today by the 34th Infantry Division. From April 1st, 2015 to September 30th, 2017, FORCECOM Aviation Resource Management Survey Program mobilized Chief Getz as the maintenance officer of the Aviation and Safety Division. His leadership and technical expertise evaluated and advised safety measures to enhance the readiness of numerous aviation units and aviation facilities across the country. His mentorship and training with Army Aviation junior warrant officers nationwide secured a future benchmark of knowledgeable maintenance officers for the aviation community. Chief Getz and his wife Penny live in Elk Park, North Carolina, since retiring in 2018. He has been busy transitioning to a life in the Appalachian Mountains, the birthplace of his wife Penny. Chief Getz and his wife returned to Minnesota in 2001 after being diagnosed with service-related cancer to receive treatment at the Mayo Clinic. It was during this 9-month period that Chief Getz learned the true meaning of the Band of Brothers. Through all the prayers and support that sustained his family, Chief Getz is now cancer-free. Chief Getz stays active, volunteering in support of seniors in his local community. He is an unofficial military advisor and recruiter and mentor in the aviation community. He attends the Banner Elk Christian Fellowship Church and continues to hone in on his golf game as a member of the Mountain Glen Golf and Country Club. Chief Getz is a life member of the Army Aviation Association of America, the Warrant Officers Association, the VFW Local Post 4286. Chief Getz's most important activity is keeping up with his four-legged children, baby Bubba Boy, Earl Jones, Buddy Ray, and Sassy May, in the lifestyle to which they have grown accustomed. Chief Getz was unable to attend today, and Chief Getz was nominated by CSM Juan Escobar. Our next honoree is CSM Eric R. Arney. CSM Arney enlisted into the United States Marine Corps on December 5th, 1978. He served as an ammunition and explosive technician until his honorable discharge on January 28th, 1982. He began his career with the Minnesota National Guard, enlisting on May 20th, 1983, as an operation clerk in Headquarters and Headquarters Battery, 1st Battalion, 175th Field Artillery. He was hired as the Battery Full-Time Staff Administration Specialist, April 1984. Command Sergeant Major Arney's military career spanned over 4 decades, with important leadership services such as a Battery First Sergeant and 6 different Sergeant Major positions. From April 1st to April 20th, 1997, serving as the First Sergeant of Bravo Battery, 151 Field Artillery. He led the Minnesota Army National Guard efforts in the flood fight in Granite Falls, Minnesota, leading over 300 soldiers from multiple Minnesota units. While serving as the Command Sergeant Major of the 151 Field Artillery, during the deployment of Operation Iraqi Freedom Operation Iraqi Freedom 3 from 2003 to 2004, he remained in the rear at Montevideo, Minnesota, and led the battalion in reorganizing into 2 security companies and a rear area operations center for Iraq. He was also instrumental in the battalion's involvement in all the family support groups. CSM Arney was selected as the full-time staff J1 Army Personnel Sergeant Major in April 2004, and he was tasked with providing tactical support and policy initiatives to include the Enlisted Personnel Management System, the Minnesota Achievement Ribbon, IPERMS, and DIMERS implementation. He was selected to serve as a team member of the state's first working group focused on the division and Joint Force Headquarters levels and providing a growth plan resulting in a direct growth of AGR resources in the field. In April of 2009, CSM Arney deployed as the Battalion Command Sergeant Major for the 151 Field Artillery in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom from 2009 to 2010. The battalion deployed as a convoy escort battalion, operating as security for logistics convoys in Iraq. He aided in review, development, and execution of command guidance. He also met with all convoy escort leader teams often and made 5 missions into the combat theater. CSM Arney finished his military career as the J-8 United States Property and Fiscal Office Sergeant Major. In this position, he initiated a program for the review of unit vacancies and projected manning fields through EPS and recruiting. He was the first Level 2 Financial Manager certified soldier in the Minnesota Army National Guard, and he served as a Department of Defense Comptroller subject matter expert for Minnesota. CSM Arney is a volunteer for the Department of Natural Resources, conducting annual loom surveys. He is also a volunteer for the Prairie Woods Environmental and Educational Center in New London, which conducts education and activities for 3rd to 12th graders area schools. CSM Arney serves as a volunteer with the Let's Go Fishing organization, Wilmer. He is also a member of the New London American Legion. CSM Arney was nominated by Brigadier General Kevin Gertis.
Well, I come from the field artillery, where a 2-minute time on target is often a mission that we try and conduct, so I'll try and conduct it. General Mankey, general officers, commanders, command sergeants major, distinguished guests, family and friends, thank you for the warm welcome. I am truly honored to be inducted into the Minnesota National Guard Corps of Honor. I want to thank Brigadier General Kevin Gertis for nominating me for inclusion and the Memorialization Board for consideration and inclusion. Brenda, thank you. I've always called you the CSM of the Arneys. You had my 6 for 40 years, always in the shadow of my career and taking care of Fort Home. Sons, Sergeant Shane retired, Arney, my escort today, who followed me in a career and is now his commitment to service members in need. We are proud of you. Brett, who we tried to convince to join, but would rather walk the woods of Camp Ripley looking for deer sheds. Little did we know he would intern at Camp Ripley for 3 years with the environmental offices. My daughters-in-law, Heather and Jenny, for continuous support, and our grandchildren, Brandon, Kalik, Riker, and Lily, who bring more spitshine to my heart than you'll ever know. My parents, no longer with us. Their support in following my career had an enormous impact. During a career spanning 40 years and many assignments, others along the way have shaped or impacted me. There are too many to acknowledge, but I have time for a few. Chief Warrant Officer 5, retired Marvin Garby. He left a major mark on my career, my full-time career. He was tough on how to go about the business of personnel and administration. His correcting of my shortcomings and mistake was not always received well. However, teaching me the value in researching regulations and policy was something that would become a great asset in my career. Command Sergeant Major retired Joe Van Lith, no longer with us. Responsible for teaching me the basics of field artillery operations and attention to detail. Another who gave tough love, but demanded putting in the long hours, increasing my knowledge, and performing skills had an enormous impact on how I carried myself as a soldier in an NCO. CSM retired Scott Mills, a true mentor for me in how to be a command sergeant major. We met as sergeants major in 2004, preparing our deployments for our battalions for deployment, and we became pretty good battle buddies. We competed for the senior enlisted NCO position at Joint Force Headquarters a few years later. It got down to the four of us, and Scott was selected, which never bothered me. He became the state CSM, and I was the J1 Sergeant Major, and we made a hell of a team establishing and implementing new programs and enlisted personnel policy. Many of those things are still in effect today. Brigadier General retired Curtis had a significant impact on my part-time and full-time careers. Twice he asked me to join him on his leadership team. First as the CSM of the 151, and then as the J1 Sergeant Major. From the time we met as young soldiers in the 175 to when I was a CSM in the 151, I admired his approach to how he led the battalion and cared for his soldiers to accomplish the mission. I learned to care for soldiers and fight for their rights and how to show compassion and discipline, a leadership trait I hope I emulated. Thank you to my family, to our good friends in attendance. The support throughout the years has a special place in my heart. To everyone here today, thank you for supporting the Minnesota National Guard, and it is my pleasure to be included in the Court of Honor, a recognition of Minnesota National Guard members and civilians who have shaped the organization to what it is. Thank you.
Our next honoree, or our next inductee, is from the 2003 induction, CSM Robert Klinkner. CSM Klinkner began his 28-year military career enlisting in the Minnesota Army National Guard January 15, 1992, as a signal support system operator in Charlie Battery, one of the 125 Field Artillery, located in St. John's, Minnesota. CSM Klinkner entered the full-time force in 2001 as a readiness NCO for the 134th Signal Battalion. He was then selected as the state quota source manager responsible for the acquisitions, management, and execution of school seats for officers, non-commissioned officers, and soldiers. During this time, he became qualified as an 11 Bravo infantryman. He then deployed to Basra, Iraq, as the Battalion Operations NCOIC for a Division Special Troop Battalion. He worked to improve base defense infrastructure, defense and security operations while working as the QSM and supervising individual training efforts for over 1,500 soldiers. In 2010, he was selected as the full-time staff NCOIC of 2 of the 135 Infantry Battalion and the first sergeant of the 1 of the 135 Combat Support Company supporting 2 of the 135 Battalion. Over his 2-year tenure, he increased NCO education completion, duty MOS qualifications, and retention by over 30% each. He was then selected as the Battalion Rear Deck Command Sergeant Major as an E8 when the battalion deployed to Kuwait. In 2012, CSM Klinkner was then selected as the 34th Infantry Division Operations Sergeant Major. He was recognized by the state and Army National Guard leadership during multiple warfighter exercises. He also managed multi-million-dollar budgets and budgeting processes for 6 subordinate commands. In 2015, CSM Klinkner was selected as the state J3 Sergeant Major and concurrently as the 194 Squadron Command Sergeant Major. In the J3 role, he continued improving budget execution across the state. As the Squadron CSM, he oversaw sustainment operations with an operational readiness rate of 94% during the 2016 NTC rotation and 100% accountability of his troops. In 2017, he was assigned as the 175th Regional Training Site as the Regional Command Sergeant Major, overseeing successful training for over 1,600 soldiers. CSM Klinkner and his wife, Deanne, and 2 sons, Michael and Andrew, live in North Mankato, Minnesota. Since retiring, he has worked as the general manager at A&E Construction Supply in Mankato up until April of this year. He is currently working for Minnesota Department of Veteran Affairs as the Veterans Benefit Division Supervisor. CSM Klinkner has been an active member, board member, and legislative liaison for the Minnesota National Guard Enlisted Association for many years. He was a volunteer for multiple Minnesota National Guard youth camps as a leader and range operator. He is also an active member of both the American Legion and the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post in Mankato. He is also a lifelong member of the Disabled American Veterans and the Infantry Association. CSM Klinkner was nominated by Command Sergeant Major Ryan Hofstede.
Good afternoon. I am truly honored and humbled to stand before you this afternoon as a member of the Minnesota National Guard Court of Honor. First and foremost, I want to express my deepest gratitude to the Memorialization Board for selecting me for this prestigious role. It is with immense pride that I accept this responsibility. I want to thank Major General Retired Lloydel and Elisario as the current and past board presidents, as well as former 34th ID former commanders. It was a true honor serving under your commands as your operations sergeants majors. Your leadership was inspiring, and I thank you for your unwavering support and guidance and belief in me throughout my career, with assignments both in the division operations to the 9-4 Cav CSM and then on to the RTI. To Command Sergeant Major Hofstede, I thank you for nominating me to this court. Serving with you was a true honor that then eventually built into a great friendship. May you continue to find great success in your future endeavors. To Major General Menke, Command Chief Erickson, and Command Sergeant Major Rost, Brigadier General Kurska, thank you for your support, friendship, and service. To my mentors, retired Command Sergeants Majors Scott Mills, Harold Sommerfeld, Bruce Stowe, Doug Wortham, Doug Julien, Mitch Hellkamp, and Paul Herr. Thank you for listening, guiding, and directing, sometimes unwillingly. I appreciate your advice, and sometimes hard was appreciated. To the soldiers, officers, professional civilians of the Minnesota National Guard that I served with, your continued support and encouragement were invaluable. They inspired me to push myself in achieving my goals, sometimes unimaginable. I want to take this time to thank those commands that I served with. The 125 Artillery in St. James, Minnesota, Charlie Battery. Captain Herkey, Commander. My uncle, Gary, my section chief at the time, thank you for attendance. The 134 Signal Battalion, at the time Major Degree, for hiring me onto the full-time force with then First Lieutenant Ogier as a training officer. My time in the battalion, the short 2 years I spent there, was inspiring, learning the full-time force. Then on to the Joint Forces Headquarters as the state quota source manager, working for under Colonel Hayes. Appreciate your time, sir, and thank you. Moving down to the 34th, then DHHB, the time that we had ramping up to Fort Lewis, Washington, and then on to Basra, Iraq. I thank you, Major Mayo, as my 3 my direct report for those long nights and discussions. For the command team, I appreciate your time. It was a phenomenal deployment. I couldn't ask for a better team. To the 135 Infantry, at the time, Major Charles Kemper, now Division Red Bull 6. Thank you for your inspiration. And Colonel Jake Helgestead, another too soon. His time that we served together was a phenomenal time. The leadership that he and I talked, going back and forth to the division headquarters as when he was the 5 and I was the Ops Sergeant Major. I cherish those memories. Red Bull Infantry Division, getting ramped up for Africa, the mission that never happened. That was an intense operation to fight Ebola. That was one deployment I wish I could have that we never were able to go to. It was awe-inspiring to watch the staff move through that problem set. Then under the 9-4 Cav, Colonel Kemp, Brigadier General Kemp, our time there to the NTC rotation, bringing that squadron through the turmoils when I first arrived there, through the suicides, getting that formation turned around, to the NCOs that really led the fight, getting us to NTC and back at 100%, Iron Rangers through and through. The RTI, Colonel Benson, Colonel Horvath, General Horvath, our time together, thank you very much. To my fellow members of the Court of Honor, it is a privilege to stand alongside such talented and dedicated individuals. I am extremely proud to have served alongside you. I want to extend my gratitude to all those that have shaped me and my person today. Mom and Dad, thank you for everything you've done and taught me what a leader and a man really should be. Your love and encouragement and wisdom have been the foundation upon which I built my achievements. Lastly, I want to thank Deanne, Mike, and Andrew. Thank you for what you are about to do. Mike's got aspirations of being a long tab ranger, so we'll get him there. One step at a time, we'll get you into basic training first. Andrew, keep doing what you're doing. I know a couple people that can help you fish. He wants to be a guide, FYI. So yeah, it's keep doing what you're doing, buddy, and I love you. Thank you again, and appreciate this incredible honor. Thank you.
Our next honoree is an inductee from 2002, CSM John M. Lepowski. CSM Lepowski began his 36-year military career on March 18, 1982, by enlisting as an infantryman in Charlie Company, one of the 136 located in Sauk Center, Minnesota. He contributed to 3 unit reorganizations between 1997 to 2005. He supported the transition from a light infantry battalion to a mechanized infantry battalion, then the one of the 194 changed from a mechanized infantry to an armor battalion, and then finally to a combined arms battalion. In 2003, he was selected for First Sergeant of Alpha Company, one of the 194 Armor in Wadena, Minnesota. He mobilized the 152 Security Company to Fort Dix for pre-deployment training and further deployment to Iraq as a part of Operation Enduring Freedom and New Dawn. He was selected as an Operation Sergeant Major for the 194 Armor and as a part of the unit's reorganization, the 194 Armor as a transition from an Armor Pure to a mechanized and an Armor Combined Arms Battalion. He held both the 11 Bravo Infantry and 19 Kilo Armor Crew MOS and assisted in developing training plans and gunnery sequences for the unit. He was selected as the Battalion CSM for the Battalion Bastards of the Baton in 2008. CSM Lepowski deployed in 2010 and escorted equipment and supplies from Iraq to Kuwait during the withdrawal from Iraq. In 2015, CSM Lepowski was selected as the first 34th ABCT CSM, and assisted the unit in transitioning from a 14-year focus on counterinsurgency operations to a focus on full spectrum operation. CSM Lepowski ensured that the BCT soldiers had a foundation of individual and crew level skills from which the officers could then assemble platoons, companies, battalions, and brigades. CSM Lepowski was selected as the 34th Infantry Division Command Sergeant Major during his tenure. Units from the Red Bull Division participated in multiple deployments across the globe, multinational overseas training events, joint training exercises, and combat training center rotations for the 1st and 2nd Combat Arms Battalion. CSM Lepowski, along with state and national leaders, also enacted change to the enlisted promotion system regulations. CSM Lepowski resides with his wife Laura in Sauk Center, Minnesota. He is the owner and operator of Lepowski Trucking, conducting projects on county and state roads throughout Minnesota. He is an active member of the American Legion Post 67 in Sauk Center since 1989. He volunteers with the United Heroes Guard and participates in both Memorial Day and Veteran Day ceremonies. He is a life member of Sauk Center's VFW Post 2853 since 2008. He continues to volunteer his time and materials for various entities to both DNR public access on the north end of Sauk Lake and sections of the township roads. CSM Lepowski was nominated by Master Sergeant Brent Henry.
I don't know who that kid was in that picture, but man, he had hair. Whew. Well, good afternoon, General Officers, Command Sergeants, Majors, Officers, NCOs, soldiers, friends and family. Thanks for being here today. Thank you, Major General Mankey and the Memorialization Board for my selection into the Corps of Honor. I'd especially like to thank them for allowing me to come back and attend in person, being that I could not attend back in 2022. So thank you. Thank you to my wife, Laura. You've supported me all these years through the drills, annual trainings, 2 deployments, and countless meetings. You are the love of my life, and I could not have served without you. Thank you to my family and friends for all that you do, the love and support that you have given me all these years. I'm truly blessed. I joined the Guard right out of high school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I thought I'd give the service a try. You know, a lot of my friends were joining, and maybe go on to school, but I never did that. I learned a love for the Guard. I love being part of it, the structure, teaching classes, learning to become a leader. And I had some great role models back then, like Sergeant First Class Gary Gamrod, First Sergeant Bob Wentzman, First Sergeant Jim Rademacher. All of them were inducted into the Corps of Honor. Got to meet some great soldiers like Specialist Johnny Weekman, Specialist Tommy Hellerman, Specialist Matt Kresbach, who I think were part of the E4 Mafia, and they might even have started it. They're quite challenging at times, but they're great soldiers in their own right. And Matt, I'm proud of the NCO that you've become. It's great to have served with you. Thank you. Thanks for being my escort today. I got to serve with a lot of great friends like Staff Sergeant Bill Berg, Sergeant Major Brent Henry, Master Sergeant Pat Tennis, who's no longer with us, Master Sergeant Keith Tennis, Chief Glenn Feidel. They are still some of my closest friends to this day. I had some great mentors like Sergeant Major Gary Thiesing, Sergeant Major Eric Arney. You might not know it, but that first EPS board I had to sit with you guys, I was so scared to death, but I was amazed how caring and compassionate and how much you cared about the system and making it fair and equitable so we could promote the right soldiers for the right positions. Paul Herr, Doug Jeline, Scott Mills, Doug Wortham, all, I have to thank each and every one of you for all that you did for me. I had great friends like Mitch Hellkamp, Marcus Erickson, the list goes on and on. I had great officers that I got to serve with, like Mike Pazernick, who was my commander during the Apache deployment, Colonel Interest, Colonel Brian Melton, Major Vanuos, part of one of the 194 deployment to Kuwait. I got to serve again with Colonel Interest, Colonel Jensen, General Kurska, General Neil Lloydel, Ben Correll, General Leader, Gloss, just great officers to work for. Special note, Neil Lloydel, who was my commander at division, was probably the smartest man I've ever met, and I have nothing but the most admiration for you. Thank you so much for what you do. I know I forgot people. I apologize for that. Don't take it as a slight. Thank you for everything you did for me throughout my whole career. It was a great experience, and I think about it every day. It'll always be a part of my life, and thank you for being here today. I'm truly honored to be inducted in the Court of Honor, and thank you again. Congratulations to all the inductees, and thank you so much. God bless America.
Our next honoree is CSM Michael P. Warden. CSM Warden began his 27-year military career enlisting in the Minnesota Army National Guard January 31st, 1996, in the 634th ML Battalion, located in Rosemount, Minnesota, following 6 years in the U.S. Army Reserves. He transferred into the Army National Guard as a qualified 96 Romeo ground surveillance system sergeant. CSM Warden transferred to Bravo Company, one of the 194 Infantry Battalion, as a fire team leader, completed 11 Bravo MOS qualifications, and earned the Indiana Military Academy Sergeant Major's Award for outstanding leadership during the course. Next, he applied and was selected for a recruiting and retention NCO position in October of 1997 and entered the full-time force. He recruited out of the Stillwater office and supported retention efforts for 2 years and was reassigned to the 34th Signal Battalion as the full-time training NCO and reclassified to the 31 Romeo multi-channel transition system operator. CSM Warden was then selected as the Assistant Operations NCOIC at the 1st Brigade Combat Team. He maintained all of the school's quotas, orders, travel, ammunition, and developed an ammunition tracking and cross-leveling for the 1st Brigade. Additionally, he stepped in as the Readiness NCO for Bravo Troop, one of the 113 CAV, when their Readiness NCO was gone. In 2003, he moved to the HHC, one of the 194 Armor Battalion, as the Readiness NCO. While there, he increased unit retention and became the acting first sergeant in between selections. He also completed 19 kilo armor crewman qualifications and passed courses like the Army Instructor Training Course, the Tank Commander's Course, and the Abrams Master Gunner School. In 2005, he was selected to the Battalion Master Gunner position and promoted to Master Sergeant, which also included duties as full-time staff NCOIC. He was responsible for operations, training, and live fire exercises for over 500 soldiers and 44 Abrams. He continually updated training scenarios to incorporate the most current operating environment, including the first ever convoy live fire for HHC, one of the 194 Armor. In late 2005, he was cross-leveled to deploy with as the Battalion Master Gunner for 2 of the 136 Combined Arms Battalion. While in theater, he operated a Combat Tactical Operations Center in Iraq and was tasked with developing the SOP for Task Force Bearcat's Raven Small Unmanned Aerial Vehicle Program, which included both training and real-world operations. The program resulted in over 50 missions flown, all with 0 losses in theater. He was asked to move to Camp Adder, Iraq, to facilitate tactical base cluster operations center training, SOP writing, and updating battalion battle drills for the TOC, and developed the battalion tactical SOP during the change of mission transition in January 2007. Returning from deployment, CSM Warden transferred back to the Master Gunner position at HHC, one of the 194 Combined Arms Battalion, and managed training for new tanker crews. He also filled in for the Operations Sergeant Major for over 6 months. In 2008, CSM Warden transferred into the 175th Regional Training Institute to be the Operations NCOIC at Camp Ripley. He assisted RTI in increasing soldier throughput by 20% compared to the previous year and helped the unit receive over 90% on all evaluations. He also worked as the RTI Operations Sergeant Major for 7 months while completing the Sergeant Major Academy. He led the schoolhouse to accomplish 21 out of 21 accreditation standards for the 35th TRADOC accredited courses taught at RTI. In 2010, CSM Warden was selected as the 1st Brigade Combat Team Operations Sergeant Major in Bloomington, Minnesota. His work increased soldier overall readiness by 96%. While the brigade was deployed, he coordinated efforts with Camp Ripley and PTAE to train 300 more soldiers to be late deployers for Operation New Dawn mission. He then led the plans and execution for the redeployment of over 2,700 soldiers and equipment through demobilization activities, transportation to home station, and back to their families. In 2012, CSM Warden was selected as Camp Ripley's Garrison Command Sergeant Major. In his first year, he initiated a feedback mechanism for Camp Ripley Command from customer service, the Interactive Customer Evaluation ICE survey, to improve conditions, processes, and MWR for soldiers, employees, and customers. He helped improve many provided resources on the installation and training with state partners like Croatia and Norwegian Home Guard, training the newly formed Norwegian NCO Corps. CSM Warden and his wife Lisa live in Brainerd, Minnesota. Since retiring, he is working as the CFO of Neighborhood National Bank. CSM Warden continues to support soldiers and veterans by coordinating guides for Trailing for the Troops event each year for the last 9 years. He donates his time as a guide and a host for this event. He also supports the Gold Star Mothers when they meet at Camp Ripley annually. CSM Warden is also a board member and ambassador for American Heroes Outdoor. Since he began work with the organization in 2016, he has developed and supported numerous outdoor events for veteran first responders. He is an active member of the American Legion in Brainerd, Minnesota. CSM Warden was nominated by Command Sergeant Major Ryan Hofstede.
Well, I don't know. Thank you, first of all, of course, Sergeant Major Hofstede, who nominated me. I've got to say, though, that bio to me sounded like a guy who was having a hard time holding down a job. It's obviously nice to have everyone here. Appreciate you all in attendance. Congratulations to the Court of Honor nominees this year and also the past Court of Honor nominees that are here. I do want to say real quick, how about a shout out for the TSU and Camp Ripley Command who put this on every year. I think they did a great job. There's a lot of work that gets done behind the scenes to make this all happen, and I remember what that was like, so nice work. Let's see. Memorialization Board. Sergeant Major Hofstede, I already thanked for the nomination. Obviously, the Memorialization Board for the selection. It is an honor. I remember doing this over and over again and just watching all the people that got to be involved in this event. Many of them that are here. Obviously, there are a lot of mentors in this room of mine. I'm not naive enough to think that I could name even half of them. I will tell you, though, it's pretty neat. I see a lot of my senior NCO brothers and the mentors that I spent a lot of time with. I see my peers, some of you sitting in the audience, but I got to say the thing I think that meant the most to me today was I see a lot of my subordinates, the guys that worked for me and really challenged me most of the days, because at the end of the day, that was the biggest reason that I came to work, was the people that I supported. And so I see some sergeant majors walking around here that I remember hiring as E4s and E5s. So probably the coolest part of today is getting to see some of that. Obviously, it took a lot of family and friends to help me through this, supporting while we were gone. Obviously, my community was a huge part of my strength. My family, my daughter Eden and her new husband are here today. My son is working, but and obviously my wife Lisa, who I continue to say was kind of the rock, still is. Now I just get to take care of things at home while she gets her work done. So again, it is an honor. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Our next honoree is First Sergeant Virgil D. Cochran. First Sergeant Cochran enlisted in the Minnesota National Guard July 2nd, 1940, at the age of 18. His father did not want him to enlist as they owned a farm and he could have gotten First Sergeant Cochran a farming exemption. He told his father that he did not want the exemption. He did not want the exemption. He was activated for World War II on February 10th, 1941. He served in the American campaign, the Asiatic Pacific campaign, and the European African Middle Eastern campaign, where he earned 2 Bronze Service Stars. The unit out of Park Rapids was an anti-aircraft unit, and they manned the anti-aircraft guns on ships traveling from San Francisco to Hawaii. And he was promoted to First Sergeant on 5 May 1942, which was 15 months after activation. After getting promoted to sergeant, he declined to go to officers' candidate school to stay with his soldiers. During the war, he was the leader of an infantry squadron in Germany in 1944. He served in combat with Kilo Company, 109th Infantry, 28th Division in Germany. He served with the occupation forces in Germany until he was sent home for discharge from the U.S. Army on September 20th, 1945. First Sergeant Cochran again enlisted in the Minnesota National Guard on January 25th, 1960. He was assigned as a Sergeant E5 to Bravo Company, 47th S&T Battalion, Park Rapids, Minnesota, and he retired from the Minnesota National Guard as a federal technician in 1980 with Bravo Company, 147th Signal Battalion, 47th Infantry Division. First Sergeant Cochran became known as Mr. National Guard in Hastings, Minnesota, for his public outreach and increasing recruitment into Bravo Company so it could reach an authorization strength of 162 soldiers after it was reorganized from an infantry company to a communications company. It was during this time that he received the Army National Guard recruiting badge. First Sergeant Cochran supported Alcohol Anonymous and was a primary point of contact for soldiers and others in his community for support dealing with alcoholism and drug addiction. During this time, he got involved with his church and became a board member and lay leader, a title position in the church. After he retired, he got involved with the county and city drug task force, and after many years of trying to get a halfway house in Hastings, it was finally brought to fruition. The halfway house is named the Virgil D. Cochran Halfway House, located next to the Veterans Homes in Hastings. Following First Sergeant's death, the church was packed for his funeral. There were many individuals and families in attendance who First Sergeant had helped get sober. There were many former soldiers from Bravo Company. The pallbearers were all soldiers who had served with First Sergeant when he was their First Sergeant. Many county and city leaders were also in attendance. Former soldiers from Park Rapids who he went to war with also attended. First Sergeant and his wife Vivian are interned at the Fort Snelling Veterans Center. Receiving the award on behalf of First Sergeant Cochran are his children, son Thomas Cochran, and daughters Nancy Yost and Beverly Robinson. First Sergeant Cochran was nominated by Brigadier General John Batkey.
I didn't think I was going to have to speak, but I need to say a few words. I'm Colonel Retired Tom Cochran. My dad was a born leader. He was the guy who took charge of anything and everything. Probably his biggest attribute upon his retirement was his ability to be involved with the drug task force in Hastings, Minnesota, and Dakota County. Once he got involved with that, he worked diligently to get a halfway house put in Hastings. And they honored him by naming that halfway house the Virgil Cochran Halfway House, which for us in the family is a huge deal. We all appreciate what he has done for our family. not only has he handed down that born leadership, my son Ryan is here, who's a colonel on General Mankey's staff, and also my nephew, Master Sergeant Paul Robinson, who should probably be a sergeant major still. I give you a plug, Paul. Thank you. Oh, I need to thank General Bathke and CW5 Tom Maxwell for all the work they did on making the nomination for Virgil. He was a great man, and when he passed on, he was surely missed. And I want to thank the board for everything you've done for us.
Our final honoree for this evening is Mary E. Erickson. Miss Erickson began her career as a civilian employee for the Department of Military Affairs on October 31st, 1993, and served as the executive support assistant to 6 adjutant generals until her retirement from state service on December 2nd, 2014. During that period, Mary served as a critical node of continuity as senior leaders and staffs underwent the normal turbulence of a military organization. Ms. Erickson's pleasant and professional demeanor was a calming influence to senior leaders as they negotiated the challenges and accompanied leadership of a large and complex organization that is the Minnesota Army National Guard. She held the confidence of senior staff for her confidentiality and commitment to the leaders, soldiers, and airmen of the Minnesota National Guard. She consistently provided positive professional conduit for all manners of interaction between the Adjutant General's office, the Office of the Governors, various military headquarters, including the National Guard Bureau, and her counterparts in the other 54 states and territories with whom she interacted. Her ability to serve the many personality types who held the positions of Adjutant General over the course of her career is a testament to her patience and ability to adapt to various leadership styles while still performing effectively in a very challenging role to assist with the management of the time of senior leaders and the organization. Ms. Erickson and her husband, Joel, now reside in Arizona. Ms. Erickson was nominated by Lieutenant General John Jensen. Ms. Erickson would like for me to say a few words on her behalf. Thank you for your incredible honor. Thank you for this incredible honor of being inducted into Camp Ripley's Court of Honor today. This would not have happened without Lieutenant General John Jensen's recommendation, Mr. Don Kerr's preparation, submission, and Ms. Kathy Raji's assistance. I take this opportunity to thank you all who have worked for and with me during my career at the Department of Military Affairs. All have positively impacted my life in many ways, and then, and since, and now. I look back on these years with immense pride and always will.
Congratulations to all of this year's honorees and their families. On a quick note here, I would like to just say, you know, when Miss Raji told me that as the chief of staff that I was the narrator of this ceremony, you know, I knew there was 13 nominees or 13 honorees, and that there's a lot of reading that goes along with it, and it kind of had me sitting there thinking, man, I wish I would have listened to my mom when she told me to read more as a kid. But lucky for me, for the Chief of Staff, they only let you do the beginning and end a little bit. So I would like to ask for a round of applause for Captain Takesha Hunt for the wonderful job she did today. At this time, it's my pleasure to welcome to the podium the co-chair of the Memorialization Board, Brigadier General Eric Kurska.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize and thank those individuals that played a significant role in making this distinguished event happen. In particular, I'd like to thank the Memorialization Board for accepting nominations and spearheading this event. I need to thank the state headquarters staff, especially Kathy Rodge. A special thanks to the staff of Camp Ripley, who worked behind the scenes to make today's events happen. To the friends, family, soldiers here today, thank you for coming and making this a special day for our nominees. Thank you.
Thank you, General Kurska. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the benediction and remain standing for the exit of the official party.
And let us pray. Gracious God, look kindly upon all who serve you and answer the call to serve our nation honorably. May the actions of each of our distinguished honorees continue to make an impact in our organization. May their leadership shape the landscape of our state and nation. And may we continue to lead and serve with dignity, honor, humility, and wisdom. We ask your blessing upon all our fellow service members, and we ask you to guide us to live out your call for our lives each and every day. We ask all of this in your name. Amen.
This concludes this portion of the memorialization program. Please join us at the museum for the unveiling ceremony of this year's honorees in the Court of Honor. The unveiling at the museum will take place promptly at 15:30 hours. For those of you joining us online, we will have a short intermission, but we'll be back at 15:30 hours to unveil the inductees' names at the Court of Honor site. We hope you are able to stay with us during this short break. We have reserved parking for the honorees and official party in the museum and library parking lots. Parking is available alongside the west side of the airfield of Infantry Road for all those attendees. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see you at the museum.
Take this over for you, sir. Huh? What? We'll just leave it here for now, and then